Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. With patch 9.2, we got the announcement that our characters will be able to wield 2 legendaries. With this system though, we will have some limitations. We will be able to wield 1 Covenant specific legendary and 1 legendary of our choice. While this does limit the amount of insane possibilities and combinations, it will still improve the amount of damage and performance every one of our classes will have. However, it also opens up doors for very powerful builds, and unless Blizzard does some kind of tuning into 9.2, we are most likely going to be seeing some really wacky combinations that will be the strongest in the game. So in today's video, we'll highlight some of the strongest builds, which will be either something wacky that may synergize in interesting ways, or something as simple as slapping 2 of the class's strongest legendaries together and then coming up with what could potentially be a very powerful and maybe even a broken build, unless Blizzard makes some tuning for 9.2. As per usual, most of you guys watching these videos are not subscribed. Subscribe to the channel as well as hit the bell if you watch these videos anyway, especially if you want to catch some 9.2 updates in the future. Starting off with something simple. What if you were to take a class that performs really well, like in Mythic Pluses, and take some of the strongest Mythic Pluses legendaries and just put them together? Restoration Shaman is one of those classes that does well in AoE. The damage counterpart in particular, healing, of course, you're always going to be able to keep up your allies, but whatever damage a healer can contribute inside of a Mythic Plus helps out the group tremendously. Playing Kyrian, you have this totem interaction where with your healing and damaging abilities, the totem can explode for a ton of extra damage in AoE. But also you could run the Earth Elemental Legendary that puts Earthquake under the Earth Ellie, which is quite a sizable amount of AoE damage as well. With this kind of legendary combo, when you pull everything together and nuke it all down, I imagine Restoration Shamans could be doing the most amount of AoE damage. They already do some really silly numbers, but 2 legendaries that do great AoE combined together, you could be the hardest AoE hitting class in the game, not just hardest hitting healer. Another simple build would be to take Subtlety rogues and their powerful finishers that are strong in Mythic Pluses, raids, and even PvP. And what if you were to come up together as a Kyrian Subtlety rogue with the Finality finisher for a final finisher Subtlety? This one will be pretty deadly, especially if the rogue knows how to cheese some of the Kyrian supercharged common points, which will treat your finishers even if you just spend 2 common points for it. If it's supercharged, it'll act as if it spends 7 common points, together with Finality, where your second finisher, your second Eviscerate, Rupture, or Black Powder is empowered even further. With all the other damage modifiers that Subtlety can provide with Night Stalker, Dark Shadow, or even just present Shadowlands, you have so many different buffs that overlap one another, and this could potentially create some very powerful single target or even AoE damage. What about if you were to play a Beast Mastery Shadow Priest? I say Beast Mastery because Shadow Priest has 2 legendaries. One can spawn a pet to fight for you, the other changes one of your already existent pets through talents to be even more powerful than ever before. What if you would take a legendary from the Necrolord Covenant that spawns a Magus of the Dead that will cast spells at enemies in single target, together with a Mind Bender legendary that will allow Mind Bender to stick around for a little bit longer and dish out single target as well as AoE damage? It's actually might be a possibility in the future for Shadow Priests to embrace the pet-based playstyle, since their pets do quite a bit of damage. You would think it would be all about shadow damage and devouring plagues, but no, you might actually end up being the sole commander overseeing your pets, trying to keep them in combat for as long as possible, trying to make sure that they're doing the most damage. The final simple one we have on the list is Venthyr Holy Paladin Unleashed, which is if you were to take a Venthyr Holy Paladin, which still do obscene single target damage, together with the Mad Paragon legendary where their hammers are empowered, but also being Venthyr, you can run the Venthyr legendary where your Ashen can stick around a little bit longer. Already Holy Paladins are boss blasters. The single target damage they put up is quite crazy. So what if you could just sit in Ashen longer and then continuously hammer the boss over and over and over? This is probably going to be a very powerful combo if nothing gets adjusted going forward. From here on, we'll have to explain some of these builds because they are more interesting in terms of the different combinations that they provide. Next build will be the Divinest Storm Retribution Paladin. If you play a Paladin as a Necrolord, you get the Gavel ability from the Necrolord Covenant, which does a bit of shadow damage, generates a holy power, and also will make it where your next Templar's Verdict will get a free Divine Storm, and that Divine Storm will be 25% more effective. If you were to run the legendary Tempest of the Lightbringer, it buffs the damage of a Divine Storm even more, and also makes it so that Divine Storm has a projectile that fires off after you use it. So when you use the Gavel ability and you hit the enemy with the Tempest Verdict, that free Divine Storm is in fact empowered by Tempest of the Lightbringer, both in its damage counterpart as well as the mini Divine Storm that it fires off afterwards. Then add the Necrolord legendary for Retribution Paladin with Duty Bound Gavel, where you'll have 2 charges of those Gavels that can be both stored up, and the Gavels will make it so you fire off 2 Divine Storms instead of just 1. So 2 Divine Storms that are empowered by your Gavel, with Tempest of Lightbringer buffing the damage even more, with an extra mini Divine Storm firing off from 2 of them, combined with all the other modifiers that Paladins come with, like Wings, Final Reckoning, Seraphim, all those other buffs. You're looking for Divine Storm that has buffs on top of buffs on top of Paladin buffs, and in an AoE scenario, this could be the biggest AoE nuke ever seen from a melee class in the game. The next build is the big Drain Affliction Warlock Execute. Execute mechanics and execute classes are extremely strong within raiding environments, especially if you have a boss that lives in the execute phase for a long while. So if you were to take Affliction Warlock with a Malefic Wrath legendary, allowing them to build up the damage of their Shadow Bolt, or better yet, Drain Soul, stacking it up so Drain Soul has a bigger impact to damage. Together with the Conduit for Affliction Warlocks that buffs Drain Soul and Shadow Bolt damage even further, paired damage over time ability on the enemy. And if you play the Necrolord Covenant, you get the ability of Decimating Bolt. Decimating Bolt will hit the enemy for a bunch of damage. That damage will be increased the lower the target's health is. Then, Decimating Bolt, depending on how much damage it did, it'll empower one of your Warlock abilities. Incinerate for Destruction, Demon Bolt for Demonology, and Drain Soul Shadow Bolt for Affliction. And the harder Decimating Bolt hits, the more that secondary ability is empowered. Together with the Shard of Annihilation legendary, it'll make it so your Drain Soul is 100% critical strike and does 50% more critical strike damage. That's quite a lot of modifiers on top of one another that could make for a very powerful, massive drain situation, especially if you're looking for big bursty drain on an enemy target. Then we have the hybrid damage Resto Druids. The Restoration Druids already are a very hybrid spec. They like to do a bit of healing, but because of healing over time abilities, they could put a couple hots on their allies, and while those hots are ticking, keeping their allies alive, there's a lot of free room for them to do other things, like shapeshift into Boomkin form or a cat form and provide a bit of damage. This is very not uncommon inside of Mythic Plus scenarios. Put some hots on your allies, and while those hots keep on ticking, keeping everybody alive, hop in a cat form or Boomkin form and do some damage. You can use the legendary of Oath of the Elder Druid to hop into Boomkin or cat form and gain the Heart of the Wild for that form for a short moment, increasing the amount of damage you do with that form significantly, but for a short amount of time. Since you can only hop into that Heart of the Wild form every minute, it would be nice if you had some sort of a powerful ability to use every minute on cooldown. This is where Celestial Spirits Night Fade Legendary comes in, which transforms Convoke the Spirits into 1 minute CD ability, during which the Druid will be able to utilize Heart of the Wild Empowerment and Celestial Spirits' random flurry of abilities to dish out a lot of AoE damage as a Boomkin or a lot of single target damage as a cat. The next build is a very RNG one, but if it works and if you're lucky, it could mean big damage. Venthyr Eye Beam Demon Hunter. The new Venthyr legendary for Demon Hunters, as well as some of the buffs towards the Venthyr ability with Agony's Gaze, allows your Sinful Brand to do 10% more damage, and when you Eye Beam the enemy with the Gaze, it actually extends the duration of Sinful Brand. Combine it together with the legendary of Dark Glare Boon, where Eye Beam has a chance to not incur its cooldown and even refund some fury. If you get lucky, after marking the enemy with the brand, you can Eye Beam him a couple of times, extending the duration of Sinful Brand for quite a while. This is very strong in single target, if you get lucky, but also extremely strong in AoE, also if you get lucky. Because when you metamorphosis, you apply Sinful Brand to every enemy around you, and if you can land a couple of Eye Beams into that trash bag, that will mean a massive damage over time ability ticking down on everybody, as if you're a warlock casting corruption on the whole enemy team. Next, we have Fury Warrior as a Perma-Reck Fury Warrior build. With the Venthyr legendary Sinful Surge, your condemnability will extend the duration of Recklessness by 2 seconds. This is a great opener legendary and also a fantastic finisher legendary, as longer duration of Wreck provides you quite a bit of extra output, especially during the execute phases. Together with a legendary of Segment of Tormented Kings, where your Recklessness, Avatar, and Bladestorm can cause one of the other abilities to also activate, you can actually stack up the duration of Recklessness by using Wreck first with Tormented Kings, then following up with a Bladestorm. If your Bladestorm procs Wreck, the duration actually adds on to your original Wreck. So if you're lucky, get yourself a double Wreck proc and then continue to condemn at the enemy. You can extend the duration of Recklessness as Fury Warrior for quite a while, with talents that allow you to reduce the cooldown of Recklessness as you spend Rage. There's a good chance in an execute rotation, you're probably going to be almost always in Wreck, almost always doing extra damage. Then we have the Tiger King Windwalker Monk. This one is a very simple setup. Monks come with a legendary called Invoker's Delight, where when the monk summons their Celestial, for Windwalker it is Zuen the White Tiger, they gain 33% haste for 22 seconds. Zuen scales scarily good with haste, so with this legendary, Zuen does a massive swath of damage to the enemy, especially if it's a single target scenario. The Kyrian legendary Call to Arms, whenever you use the Weapons of Order Kyrian ability, you will also summon your Celestial for 12 seconds. We don't really know how double Zuen will interact with Invoker's Delight, but imagine if it stacks with 2 Zuens, you're looking at 66 potentially haste for 20 seconds after summoning a Celestial. So imagine 2 Zuens while you have 66% haste. I wonder just how much damage will they be able to do. The last one doesn't even need a special name or an introduction. Venthyr Druids plus an extra legendary. Venthyr Druids already used their Covenant legendary to its full value and reached some of the most insane damage numbers anyone has ever been able to do. So if you give them another legendary to amp up their damage even more, yeah, this is going to be pretty broken and busted. So I wonder what they will do with this in particular. Definitely Blizzard is going to have to do some sort of tunings and changes to some of the legendaries. I'm hoping they'll buff some of the weaker Covenant legendaries that don't get nearly as much play. But either way, I'm very excited about the prospects of us playing with double legendaries, and I wonder what kind of tunings they'll end up doing in the future in order to make more builds as viable as possible. Thank you guys all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments below. If I missed some kind of a build, let me know in the comments, or even just hit me up in Discord. Link to that always in the description. Feel free to join our community. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another one.